Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, coming to you this wonderful Thursday, April 17th. We have so much to talk about, Jason. RIFC proves they can do it on a cold, rainy Tuesday night in Lewiston, advancing for the first time in the Open Cup to the round of 32. Now we find out to take on the New England Revolution. But first, they're going to have to figure out Detroit City FC this weekend. This is going to be a fun show. This is probably going to be a hostile work environment. I'm fresh off my trip. I'm back home. It's good to be back in the studio. I'm here with Rhode Island FC co-host with the most, Jason Carey. Jason, it's good to be back. How are you, buddy? You looked good on this side. Honestly, it was good to see you on the other side of it. You're just bright tonight. I mean, honestly, the studio is in shambles. I'm coming back. It's so hard to like just catch up on things and then like be ready to go. Like the camera I can see is off, the light. You're also just a beautiful human being, so the light just naturally gravitates towards you. Are you muted? Is that why? Are people already talking online?
Maybe.
How about that? Can people hear you now?
I don't know. Can you?
Oh, there we go. Jason's back in. Jason, this is why we do all the testing ahead of time. But hey, we're going to get through this.
We're definitely not fashionably late to our own show.
People are going to be...
Never happens.
I don't think, actually, in all honesty, in the history of this, when we've been doing it live, I don't think we've been
like
late.
A minute.
That's like on time, especially for me. So we're here. It's fine. Everything's going to be fine. We've got a lot to go over tonight. This show is going to be from just our bootstraps here, because it's hard to get this all done with such a short turnaround, first and foremost, from the game.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing happened.
You were that drunk at the game? That's
incredible. There was no news. There was no midweek games. It's just another week, right?
I mean, I wish I could say that, but let's get through the news, because I know a lot of the conversation tonight is going to happen around the draw that was selected earlier today. And I want to start things off with the open house. RIFC announced that we'll be offering free tickets for a fan experience at the brand new Centerville Bank Stadium for the first time this April 26th. It's that Saturday. I want to be really clear on this, that this is going to be an open event for the RIFC Classic, but it is a free ticketed event. You cannot just expect to show up to the stadium because it's an open. Remember, this is all going to be gated off now. Like, you can't just walk on site. And so for that reason, it's, the whole purpose behind it is to give the community a taste, a glimpse of the in-game stadium, experience on game day. It's going to be from 11 to 2, but I cannot stress, if you guys are going, even if you're going to support like the Junior Defiance, who will be taking the field in the 5v5, it is so important you go and download the tickets from the link. We'll put it in the show notes when we post the main episode, but don't just come and say like, oh, I'm going to have this thing ready to go. They're going to do all their original Fan Fest fare, because this is really their soft opening, right? They're going to figure out what works. I've heard the Fan Fest is actually down near the river below the main center screen. It's not going to be up near the beer gardens and the concession stands. Speaking of concession stands, there will be a mix of some of the new offerings for food flair. So you're going to have the smash burgers, the lobster roll, from all the stuff we've seen, the very New England stuff, and then your standard fare of dill pickles, hot dogs, popcorn, all that kind of stuff. So there'll be 18 unique in-game concession stands for that. But it's really important. Again, I cannot stress enough that you get tickets for this, or at least be ready to download the link, onto your SeatGeek and go from there. So, I mean, we're going. We'll get our tickets, but outside of that, anything strike you? I mean, this is just an operational soft opening, right? There's nothing else really here.
Yeah, easy way to get people in, see how everything works, kind of find, what are those pressure points that they need to kind of work on.
Agreed. So we're going to move on and just get to the thing that everyone wants to talk about. And that is, of course, the draw today in combination. I can't even talk. I'm so excited about this. Rhode Island FC. I mean, social media was ablaze today. I mean, we've seen these two fan groups, especially the toxic ones that have been around. We've seen them go at each other online. But I think holistically, we've always seen a gentleman's agreement, a handshake, that, hey, these two communities are, what they are. They're cordial at best. We won't ever see each other, so it's no big deal. Well, those walls all came down with the announcement today. New England Revolution drawn against Rhode Island FC in the round of 32. Rhode Island FC given the rights to host at the new Centerville Bank Stadium. We knew that ahead of time, just like we couldn't host in the third round. New England Revolution could not host in the round of 32. There was a chance there that we wouldn't get this drawing. Some people said, "Oh, it was going to happen," but this suddenly has now. And Jason, I feel like this is the coronation to decide the king of New England. This game has so much on the line. I feel like in some ways, especially since it's so hyper local, that this game actually may be more watched than the USL Cup final, which is crazy to say, but there's so much at stake here. What were your thoughts? I know like you were immediately telling me like, dude, we got them. Like we were super excited. What was your overall take on the drawing today?
Yeah, I mean, Revs at home is what we wanted. You know, maybe there are some theories out there that it was preordained, or I don't know. They swiddled those little red Easter egg ball things they had around.
So, fun fact, I actually watched that on slow motion. Like because I wanted to know, like, is there any way this was pre-scripted? Because there's 4 balls, they're all wrapped up, and I watched it at like 0.25 speed on YouTube. And I tried to see if like her hand was actually on one the entire time, like a 3-card Monty, and she never really took her hand off of it.
Of hand.
Definitely mixed them all up very thoroughly. My only thought, so if conspiracy theorists really want to like lean in on that this was organized by US Soccer and the Open Cup committee, the only other way you could have done it is that one egg had like weight in it. So as she was moving around, she had to find the one that was like the most resistance. We never saw the bottom of it. We just saw, the paper. So, if that's how they do it, I'm still fine with it because this is what we wanted.
Wasn't the same conspiracy with the World Cup ones? They were like the balls were heated or something.
Yeah.
So ones were warmer than others, and they went up to them.
Exactly. So, I mean, listen, I'm all about it if that's the case. We got what we wanted, even more so doubling down on it. Not only did we get the New England Revolution as the team to face off at Centerville Bank Stadium. I almost said it. But in addition to that, the New England Revolution were drawn second in the mix, meaning that the next round, in the round of 16, they earned the priority rights for hosting responsibilities. So that means the winner of our match gets to host in the round of 16. So we not only will possibly get, we will get our round of 32, but if we advance, we could then get the round of 16 as well. That's super exciting because that's one of those things where you're like, okay, like this is a moment for this team to go from, I mean, you look back a year ago to the day, I think now at this point, got knocked out of the Open Cup in our first round, in round 3 against the USL 1 team. We've now made it past one of the most difficult teams, especially, and we'll talk about the Hearts of Pine in a second, but not an easy game, very much a battle to the very end. And now we get this thing that I know that New England Revolution fans across the board they don't want this matchup. And like, truthfully, and we know that we understand the U.S. Open Cup from an MLS perspective in the past. If you're the New England Revolution right now, Jason, what's going through your mind as a fan of that team?
Yeah, like you said, I don't think they want this, right? Because for them, there's not a big upside for this, right? They, as the bigger team, are expected to beat us, right? So if they don't go out there and comfortably beat us, then it looks bad on them. That will go on their permanent record, right? If they were to, because at the end of the day, if we go out there, we do our best, we fight hard, we're just not good enough on the day, and we lose. Okay, fair enough. MLS, these players are paid exorbitantly more. They have a 30-year head start on us.
Thomas Chancale's entire salary is more than RIFC's budget.
Yeah. So in that regards, okay, fine, cool. It's like you don't get a reward for like, beating up on the guy, a weight class below you, right? It's like, okay, you were expected to do that. So in that regards, though, the problem is that we've seen in their history, because I've went back and looked, like they have lost to lower division sides in the Open Cup. So I don't know if it's just they've won some, to be fair, too. So there's always kind of a mixed emotions there with MLS sides in the Open Cup. They don't always take it as serious, especially with the Revs in the position that they are in the season, right? Realistically, they're probably going to look at their 2 games on the weekends because it's also, short rest for them as well. They probably have to take those, quote unquote, more serious than they do the Open Cup match because they're fighting to gain points to have some sort of relevancy for their season because they're already down there at the bottom. It's not like they've got a nice, comfortable cushion. So they have to take those 2 weekend matches probably a little more seriously. So they're going to field a rotated side. They'll probably have a few of their quote unquote starters on the bench. And at that point, especially like you had mentioned, a lot of their, when we first came out, some of their fan base was like, oh, okay, cool, another soccer team in the area. And then when we started doing good, it almost felt like from some of their fan base was like a little bit of resentment and jealousy.
There's an identity crisis going on in that team right now, especially when it comes to things in RIFC.
Yeah, and they call themselves the New England Revolution. So they are trying to, be a whole blanket for the area and say, everyone here, come be fans of us. But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of support for them, at least as every state in New England is starting to kind of rally behind their own local squads. You're finding more and more people who don't really want anything to do with them anymore. And I think that their fan base is getting frustrated, seeing a lot of other teams, even the championship USL teams, like finding success and like really rallying behind their teams. And they're kind of sitting here thinking like, well, what are we looking forward to? Like, we're just trying to hope that we're not going to get the wooden spoon.
Which is the equivalent of, I guess, relegation in the MLS. I mean, here's the thing, right? I look at this
hashtag not an MLS podcast.
Unfortunately, tonight it's very much a hashtag MLS podcast. I look at this Revolution side, and everything you said about the table stakes, everything that they have going on, you're 100% correct. I think what's actually more important, like you said, the Revolution have a choice here, right? They can either field their top squad, or they can do what historically teams used to do in the Open Cup, which they'd enter at the beginning. They'd field a MLS2 team until they got to a certain point where if the stakes started getting good, if there was the CONCACAF spot really truly within striking distance, they would start either co-mixing in some of the first team, or they just go straight into first team competition, because you have to look at it as this is probably the only hardware we're going to win for the year. Like you said with the Revolution right now, there's very little chance that they make the playoffs and compete for Cup in terms of the hardware that they can get. They're not going to win the Eastern Conference. They're not going to get the Supporter Shield. MLS Cup chances are fading fast. The Open Cup may be their only means to hardware and a redemption since 2006 when they last won it. The fact that they can then do it by going through RIFC could be very lucrative for someone like Caleb Porter, who I think every single game at this point he's coaching like his job depends on it. Like if he still has his job by the time we get to the Open Cup match and he doesn't field a full strength squad and then they lose, this could seriously be a game that knocks out not only the Revolution from the Open Cup, but it could actually knock out Caleb Porter from his job. So there's, I think, a lot more at weight in this when it comes to the stakes than we think. But to go back to the other thing you said about like we already have won by just getting this draw. The other thing that I was talking today to Irvin, the president of Defiance, he's super excited about this. Like the plans going on in his mind. This isn't just the performance on the pitch, right? This is also a spotlight to soccer in the community. And what I think is really fascinating about this is you're going to see New England casuals, right? When like the Revs fans that, like you said, they've been displaced. They don't feel like this team is what they want it to be. So they've stopped going to games. They're barely paying attention because they're not relevant right now. This game is going to put a spotlight for those fans. And when this game gets broadcast on Paramount, they're going to see a New England team, maybe even closer to them than like if they're out in Springfield, like this team could be closer for them to support than actually Foxborough by, a matter of minutes really. But like they're going to see a supporter culture that is insane. They're going to see fans freaking out in this game. I don't care what people say about it being midweek. This game is going to be full. This game is going to be sold out. I've already seen tickets on the secondary market. What'd you see? $295?
Something like that, like 200 range.
Yeah, $295. And we were bragging like a week ago that tickets were going to be $4.01. Like this game has so much more at stake. And when you look at how the fan community is going to get spotlighted by this, it almost doesn't matter because Defiance isn't going to stop celebrating if we, God forbid, we get knocked out, losing 0-3. They're not going to like sit there and cry and like moan. They're going to literally be chanting. They're going to be partying. They're going to be firing off. I'm pretty sure that the fire department is going to need to be on site.
Shut down the game.
I don't know anything. I just have a feeling like for as hard as we went for El Clamico, I feel like, again, this is going to be even more insane. So Rhode Island FC already wins in the stands. They have a very good chance to win on the pitch. Right now, everything seems to be clicking for them. San Antonio, I mean, Detroit's going to be the big obstacle this weekend. San Antonio seems to be on a bit of a backslide right now. They've now lost 2 games. And in Monterey Bay, I don't think Monterey Bay is as legit as they seem to be. So maybe by that point, we can find our way through. This is a perfect setup if this momentum can carry. And even if it doesn't, this team is going to show up. People make fun of us all the time. We're the Revs light. Half of these guys, they didn't get selected by the Revolution. You know, you think about these professional athletes who, hey, I trained in your academy. I grew up in your system. You didn't want me. You said I wasn't good enough. Now I get to stick it to you. I can't think of a better game to, like, you know, do the ultimate, like, I'm going to show you what you missed out on. You know, like if Jack Panayiotou was still on this team, he probably wouldn't be allowed to be played because who knew where his alliances would be on the day.
Hat trick or something. Yeah. Like I think even the players who don't have any association with Revolution will kind of feel that, you know, like we're the little brother pushed around type of mentality. I think that the entire team will have a bit of a chip on their shoulder and try and like really stick it to the Revs.
The Boston Revolution, because that's what they want to do. The best joke of the day. I've been trying to stay away from it because there are other personalities that follow and talk about this club that love to get stuck in the New England Revolution pit. And Tom Quinlan, I'll say it. You know who you are, Tom Quinlan. You're doing the Lord's work out there. But I try not to. Like, I'll say things, and if I have a funny joke that I can create, like, I don't care about the reputation. But mostly, I'm not going to go out and flame the fires of war when it comes to these two communities. But someone wrote out there today, and I retweeted it. They said, New England Revolution, for the first time ever, will have the opportunity to play in a soccer-specific stadium in New England. And I was like,
I saw that.
It's done. Call the burn unit. It's over.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, I'm excited. This is going to be, no matter what, this is going to be an insane time. Details on the game itself, it has now been confirmed for Wednesday, May 7th. So call out at this point. Don't try to show up at like 6:15.
Time proved off.
Oh, you already did? You already called out? The game's at 7:30. It will be at Centerville Bank Stadium, but get there early. You're going to want to get there by 2 o'clock. I mean, honestly, don't have any RIFC badges on your car that day. I'm really curious how the stadium, and we'll talk about this with Paul Byrne. We should have him on next week. If my timelines are, I'm still jet lagged here, so I'm a little discombobulated, but we should have Paul Byrne on, and I will absolutely ask him, you know, at this point, we haven't had to really ever worry about away fan security with the exception of Hartford, and that game's still a couple months away. Like, what are you going to do for fan security that day? Also, we know that the fans are all going to be put in 201, which is the top deck, I think, opposite of the Defiant 1636. We also know that this game is the 18th game in the complimentary package for season ticket members. So this is that quote-unquote free game. I am really curious on what the mix is of Rhode Island FC fans to New England Revolution, and how does the soccer operations team and the ticketing team handle that? Because you don't want this to be, it's so close in the proximity to Foxborough. You don't want this to be a mix. You want this defiantly Rhode Island FC. So, like, how do you make sure that Rhode Island FC fans, one, first have access to the tickets, which I think the season ticket membership part is a huge piece, but that two, when you release the rest of the tickets, how do you make sure it's like you don't sell these tickets, at least at first, you know, money talks at the end, but you don't sell these tickets at least to a New England Revolution fan. I don't know how that's going to work. I will say this, though. I've already made the decision for the tickets that we have in our possession. I'm going to give them away to the first person that sends me a video of them cutting up an authentic New England Revolution kit. I've got 2 tickets. So I'm going to say it right now in case anyone that's listening now, they already have these tickets. But anyone who wants to send it out to a friend, if you want 2 free tickets to the New England Revolution game, get me a video of you cutting up an authentic Revolution kit. I don't care what year. Doesn't have to be like the newest one, but the newest one would be better. But you have to cut right through that Revolution logo. So you're gonna have to get some strong scissors. But that's how we're gonna do it.
I mean, those are expensive. That's a lot to ask. I mean,
because here's the thing. You know what I don't want, Jason? You know what I really don't want? Because I feel like one person that's in our fan base who exists in both worlds, someone's gonna show up in one of those split down the middle half and half kits. Half New England Revolution, half Rhode Island FC. and it's going to be the most disgusting thing we see on the day.
Yeah, that would be an abomination.
That'd be a crime against humanity.
I mean, if they want to oust themselves so we can shame them, but also at the same time, like, we don't need to see that Cronenberg thing in public.
I mean,
look, the Revs been around for a long time. If you still support them, fair. That's fine. Don't maybe go out publicly and do the thing where, like, I just want both teams to have fun.
No.
Like, no, like, you
absolutely not.
For the purpose of this match, you pick a side, and then that's it.
And I think that's fair. I think for this game, you pick who you want, and then afterwards you can go back to loving both camps. Like, that's fine. But you can't be Mama Kelsey when it was the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I just want both my boys to, like, really have a great game. It doesn't work that way. You cannot do that. And if
she has a favorite, she just didn't tell her.
I will also say this to the front office that is listening: don't you dare think about doing one of those split scarves. If you do that, don't even, I shouldn't have even said it, because they probably now are thinking, oh, that's a really good idea, Matt. Like, we're gonna have to do that. Don't you dare. Don't do it.
Those are only for special occasions.
When Messi comes to
town.
Right,
when you play a team that you're never gonna see again. If like FC Basel showed up to play a friendly against the RFC, with like just such a random team, and it was like an occasion, cool. That's like a memento from a match. Like, hey, I saw FC Basel play against RFC. Cool. There you go, half and half scarf. But if it's rival like teams, no, you don't do that.
Yeah. Someone showed me the USL Cup final one, where it was the Colorado Springs, the Colo Spigs RIFC one, and it looked cool. And they said, do you want me to go get you one? And I said, I want one if we win. If we don't win, I never want to see that again in my life.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a cool memento to remember the occasion if it was a good occasion for you. But if not, it's I don't need to see this. Get this out of here.
Exactly. Any final thoughts on this? It's early. We're going to have a bunch of experts from around. I mean, the benefit of being with the Blazing Musket is they've been so core centric, New England Revolution for so long, that there's a wellspring of people that we can have on. There's places we can go to talk about this game. We've got about a month to do it. But any early final impressions on this Open Cup draw?
No, I'm just really excited. It was I happened to set my alarm at 9:15, and then I was like looking at my phone and I see, oh, the draw is on, so I just quickly flip it on, and it's the first draw. I was like, oh, perfect. And then I actually thought it's really cool that they had an actual like show with analysts on, and to kind of talk about the draw, and they kind of like made it a big thing. So I really like how, like, there was some concerns, right? Well, the Open Cup's getting put behind a paywall, but also maybe they're getting the treatment that it deserves. So at least so far. So I was happy to see that. And then it was funny thinking about the whole the dumb meme, like, people say let's go, and then they just sit down and play games. It felt like I had all this hype for the match, and then I'm just like, I'm gonna go do my remote work and sit in front of a computer all day. Well, I'm excited about a game 3 weeks away.
I watched the video of them watching the draw, and I watched Coach Kano's expression, and he just smiled. And I'm right now, people, and I see people in the chat, they're talking about about like, what do we name this? What do we name this derby? And surprisingly, we've thrown names out in the past for things that did not stick. I'll leave that out to the group. El Clamico wasn't ours. I think it was, I don't remember who it is.
Some fan in the Discord.
And I don't even think it was a Defiance member. It could have been. Anyways, we have the record. We can always go back and find it. So people said, like, oh, it's too early to name El Clamico. That took a while. And then like 3 months later, we found a name. It took 6 months. I think it may even taken a year before it really got traction under it. It's hard to name this one because we have no idea the proximity of the next time we'll see them after this. So if you have names, throw out whatever you want and see what picks up traction. I'm just calling it. It's the Coach Kano Smith homecoming, because, that's what this is. It's the first time he'll be, playing around the Revolution in a professional capacity in a very long time. So, but that's not the name I'm trying to stick to. I don't want to fall into the trap of finding one right now. So if fans rally behind something, we'll immediately start calling it that. I'm excited either way. I will also say, by the way, on the production side of the draw today, did you notice the LA Galaxy legends that were named for each of the groups? We were in the Kobe Jones, excuse me.
I thought that
group.
was funny because I was like, Kobe Jones, Galaxy legend, beating the Revs and whatnot. Like, why did that happen? But then I did some quick like Googling. He was born in Detroit, and Detroit happens to also be in our group. So
I think the next one was Landon Donovan. So like I'd have to go back and
there
look
was a
at
Clint Dempsey group as well too.
Okay.
So they were just going with USMNT / MLS legends. So
as they should. But we've spent enough time. We will totally dive into this at a much deeper capacity, closer to it. In the meantime, if you're even thinking about going to this game and you're not a season ticket member, go get the tickets. I've heard right now that the club is cleverly trying to attach like a multi-game plan to this, which it makes sense. I mean, that's what they were doing up the road for messy games. Like you wanted the messy game, you had to buy like 3 or 4. I'm all about that. Go get these tickets. It's not something you want to miss. And just make sure, again, you call out for work sick or you plan it out right now. Do not miss this game.
If you can't go, please try and make sure your ticket gets to an RIFC fan and not a Reds fan.
Oh, yeah. The Defiance will track you down. There are already complaints about resale on the secondary market for inside the 117 section. There's a whole channel and mechanism to make sure tickets go to the right people. So don't do the money thing. Do the right thing. Don't do the money thing. Let's get into this game recap now of the Hearts of Pine versus Rhode Island FC in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup. Jason, we have like 3 different advantages here when it comes to how we talk about who enjoyed this game and how they enjoyed it. Before we do, just getting over the particulars of it. The game marked the first ever win in U.S. Open Cup action for the Amber and Blue. It's also the first back-to-back set of wins this year in 2025, if you count it across all different competitions. And it was the first time we saw multiple starts from Jackson Lee, Joe Brito, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, and Zach Harivo, all in getting this very important win. We'll start with you, I guess, on how was you traveled, you enjoyed Portland, then you enjoyed Lewiston. What was the overall vibe check on the game, and how was your experience?
Yeah, it was a great trip up. The weather started off pretty nice in the morning. We got ourselves a little rain there in the end, but it felt very typical of New England. If it didn't rain, maybe that wouldn't have been a good sign. Or like this game is cursed. Maybe we don't need to not continue on. Honestly, I was like impressed. The Hearts of Pine fan, they filled that place up on a wet Tuesday night. So that was great. And especially the fact that it's in Lewiston, not in Portland, which is about 45 minutes north. So the fact that they got that many fans to show up was actually really awesome. Their supporters group, we hung out with some of them before the match at a local pub down in Lewiston. Bunch of great people. They're very welcoming. So looking forward to seeing them when they come back on the reverse trip in the Jägermeister Cup. Actually, Tom Karen was there hanging out, Mainer, owner of Hearts of Pine and Nesson legend. At the actual match, I saw the other owner. Remember we watched the that Hearts of Pine documentary, Gabe Hoffman Johnson.
Yeah.
He was there and is actually kind of waving all of us off and saying, "Hey, thanks for coming out." So he must have I don't know. He's very into sports and stuff, and he had a giant cast on his foot. I don't know what happened there, but he was still out there supporting his team. It was kind of funny when we first got there. They haven't had any away fans yet, so it felt like they weren't being ridiculous anything, but their security was very much I don't know what to do with this. Are we are we treating you like prisoners, or are you a bunch of wild animals? So they were, a little cautious with us, but I think as we all kind of came in, we were all pretty respectful and, didn't cause a mess or anything. So they were like, okay, cool. These people are fine. Because obviously Hartford, no fans travel to
Hartford has no fans. They just have people bored on a Saturday night with nothing better to do. And they have to be given $1,000 to attend one of their games nowadays.
Oh man, I saw that. It's not great. But yeah, overall, it was a great trip, and I'm really kind of excited how this team has such good support like this soon in, and just like another really passionate like fan base.
I got to hear the game. So my story, I was 30,000 feet up over, I don't know, Indiana at the time when it started. Uh, Middle of my flight, had to buy Wi-Fi. I had to spend so much money to watch this game. Had to buy Wi-Fi. Had to buy Paramount Plus. I know people are like, "Oh, here's the hack to get the trial and all that," but I've already done that in the past. Every time something of action happened, the game would like break up. Just the Wi-Fi could not handle it at that altitude. But I want to say one thing first and foremost to define 1636. I could hear you guys loud as day. I could not really hear the Hearts of Pine until they started doing claps
With thunderclap,
or the drum. But what I didn't hear, and I'm curious for your take on this, I didn't hear any drumming because I know what that sounds like from La Banda. Were drums allowed in?
not for RFC.
Okay.
And I think that ties back to the whole thing where they were pretty sure they didn't know what was going to happen. I was talking to, El Capitan Irvin about it, and they were trying to work something through, and even their supporter group was like, yeah, they're cool guys, let them bring their drums, but ultimately something couldn't get worked out. Hopefully in the future, maybe when we go over to Portland instead of Lewiston, because that might have been an issue there as well too, playing at a high school. That'll be different. I think the reason why maybe it was harder to hear them was because we were stationed on the side with all the cameras and the mics and all that stuff. They were on the opposite side of the field because I could hear them throughout the match. So they were definitely making some noise.
Yeah, no, it's not to say, and I think that's going to be a problem even when we have it at Centerville Bank, because the broadcast tower is on the side where the supporters group for any away traveling fans will always be. Defiance will be tucked down to the side. Now, Defiance will arguably be louder because at home games they're going to bring 75 drums. So it'll be interesting to see. I will say this though, as a message to Defiance: if when we have for the Jägermeister Cup and the Hearts of Pine come back down, let them have drums. Like don't do the whole like, oh, you didn't give us what we wanted, so we're not. Just be the bigger people here. You're going to outsound them any day of the week. So let them have their fun and embarrass them on the pitch and with your
interesting
fandom.
Random thought. I wonder what Tidewater's setup will be.
Ooh, that's a quarter in the jar.
Where's the jar? I need
We
a
have to
quarter.
get the jar. You didn't get the jar this week while
Where's
I was gone?
Centerville Bank Stadium? I wonder what their audio setup will be like in terms of you see a lot of stadiums will have like mics to kind of source the crowd sound to then like funnel that to the live audio.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we will have something like that. That would actually be good to kind of really kind of translate the ambiance of Centerville Bank Stadium. Now I'm gonna have to just say it a bunch of times to make up for it. To kind of translate that to the viewers at home.
Sure. I don't know where the mics are, but I can tell you like the speakers are wrapped around that stadium on top of, in addition to like main like amp towers. So I know how the sound is getting out to fans, but I don't yet know how the sound is being collected for those broadcasts. I want to also add in, so we haven't really mentioned this, but we have a, let's call him an assistant producer who's been helping us with the show as of late, and not sure what we'll do in the future with him, but he was a fan that just wrote in like, I want to do anything that I can to help you guys and just make the podcast the best version of itself. Basically, he knew that we were subpar listening quality and was like, I can't do anything about your voices, but I can do something about your content. And so I just want to give a shout out to someone who we haven't really acknowledged yet, but he's been hanging around for a bit, and that's Torin, who is normally abroad. He's actually over in England doing some scholastic studies. He's home right now for Easter break, and just want to give him a shout out because, again, haven't really acknowledged him. He was actually at the Guild on the night, and he said it was another fun night. He even said, like, the Guild needs some much deserved love here because, especially with the Defiance traveling in force as many as they did, it was still a crazy event, a crazy time. And again, it's hard on a weekday to get people to show up, but he said that it got crazier and crazier through the 90 minutes. And he hadn't met Natsuki yet, so he was really excited to see the custom chains that were labeled Defiance in 1636. So he got the Natsuki treatment on the night. He's just really impressed because he's been following this club from afar, and he really feels like this has the heart and soul of what it takes to be a legitimate supporters group and a legitimate fan base. So just want to give credit where credit is due And then also thank you, Torin, for all the help you do with the podcast so far. Don't know what the future relationship will look like, but thank you for everything you've done so far. Tim McDuff writes in, there was 50 over 50 at the Guild on
That's
Tuesday,
awesome.
which I remember in the early days of regular Saturday games where we would sit there and it was like 25 people would show up, like, what are we doing this for? Right? You know, like that's sometimes how it comes down. So you ready to get into this? You ready to get in this recap?
Yeah.
All right. So predictions on the lineup guaranteed to be wrong. You were close. There was some good consistency in your guesswork there. You absolutely called the Joe Brito secondary striker. That was spot on. We missed completely on Amos Shapiro-Thompson, who we thought wouldn't even dress for this, and he was a starter for the game. And then a couple of the surprises there, but we had the one and only Jackson Lee in net on that 3-5-2 with Frank Nodarse, Karifa Yao, and Grant Stoneman in the back three. The midfield five was the interesting part here. You had Aldair Sanchez out on that left wing, Zach Harivo and Taimu Okiyoshi kind of in the double pivot of the CM/CDM role, and then Clay Holstead out on that right wing back. Amos Shapiro-Thompson kind of acting as the cam. You know, we've talked about it a lot. Like, what is his game? I think we saw the best version of that now across the 60-ish minutes that he played. It was a very interesting time, and you know, his link up to Joe Brito and JJ Williams, I was really excited about. I was really impressed. On the bench, you saw Kevin Vang, Cole Dewhurst, Jojea Quizera, Rio Hope Gund, Noah Fuson, Maxi Rodriguez, and Koge Vegas. Thoughts overall on the lineup, the roster construction? It's really easy now to say, well, it worked because we got the win. But in the moment, as you saw that lineup come out, were you scratching your head? Were there questions that you had?
No, I think like we talked about, I expected some rotation, a good balance of subs and starters there. I think for those not like watching along, like your graphic, the way it kind of lines up, I think this actually makes sense that it was kind of more like a 3-4-2-1 because neither Joe Brito nor Amos Shapiro-Thompson are actually strikers. They're both kind of like cams. So it was like two cams behind a sole striker. And we did see that kind of through the tactics throughout the first, the first half of the game where JJ was on before second half he got subbed off for Noah. Like it was very much a JJ is a big, strong body and like just get the ball up to him and he's going to kind of beat most of their defenders and win the ball. You have two diminutive forward cams who can kind of run in past as you play towards them. And, while they didn't give us an easy time, I think for that first half, especially when we saw that 30 to 40 minute where we saw some love there from getting those goals, that I think it is a tactic that can work for us. Maybe as we go out throughout this, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think that, like you said, we got the win. That's all that matters. No one's going to look back and say, it was a tough match. I think ultimately, you can continue to build on that form. Good teams can win even when they're not in like great form. And that's not to say that I don't think this team is in bad form, but I think that we're still kind of figuring a few things out. Our general tactics of our like somewhat 3-5-2, a lot of that style is all there. There's just a few pieces where we're trying to figure out what's the best role for this person. How does that move forward and how do we adapt? Because people kind of know who we are now. So that originality is not like catching people off guard.
So speaking of that, then, is Clay Holstead our new right wing back?
I think so, until maybe Danny Rivera comes back. I think it's not exactly the position I want him to be in, but at the same time, we have quite a few good midfielders. We talk about Ibarra being like the quote unquote garbage man, right? That the guy who's doing the unsung hero of our midfield. He's usually never the hero, but he always has a consistently high rating. He recycles possession, he wins tackles, he gets the ball back, and he gets it to someone else on the field to kind of create that attack. On top of Maxi Rodriguez, Zach Harivo, Taimu, like we have so many midfielders there. And with that loss of Steven Turnbull, we still just haven't really figured out who can play there. So I think for the time being, I think that's going to be his role in this team.
I thought the interesting thing, it was hard to understand at the time when Karifa got his second yellow and was ejected from the match. You saw Clay Holstead get subbed out for Rio Hope Gun. Obviously, they needed another like unit back there in terms of central defense. So it was less about wing defense at that point, more so bringing someone in who could solidify the spine. I was really hoping, having seen where these were going and how many minutes Clay would have managed for him, knowing the Detroit game was quickly following, I was really hoping to see who coach might tap to be the next substitute in the formation, or to see, like, would he rotate Zach Harivo out to the wing when Noah came on? Would Noah drop? We didn't get to see any of that,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
the problem was because we were down a man. So when we saw that sub, they shifted to a 4-4-1.
Right.
They just played two blocks
of four.
You do. Yeah,
you have to do it at that point. But
the one actually funny thing was, and I don't know if this was part of just, when you rotate, someone pulls back and covers for you. There was a good period of time where Quizera was actually our striker, and Fuson was playing as part of that 4-man midfield. So kind of interesting there. I mean, with his speed, well, I don't know. Maybe something to think about there.
Lots of questions about the shakiness of our defense, especially going into the next round of the Open Cup. That's going to be a question. We'll cover that in a second. I don't want to jump around. I do want to get to the main moments of the game. Of course, we have to announce the fact that Rhode Island FC has now scored multiple goals in the first half 3 times this season, including both of the last 2 games. We've talked about this as a first half team at the moment. This is where they're striking like on all cylinders. Weirdly enough, when we were talking about what Rhode Island FC needed to do, I was in the firm belief that this would be a penalty shootout, because that's the pessimist I am. It's like, especially because I would have had like a heart attack. I would have had anxiety to have to go to Lewiston and watch that. But you had said, and I'll full credit to you, if this team can put this away and get a couple of goals in that first half action, this is what they can do best, right? Is they can control the tempo, even if the odds are kind of stacked against them, and that's exactly what they did. The first 2 goals come, 34th minute, 37th minute, so right on track for the delivery that this team's known for right now. First one, Clay Holstead. It's what we've been wanting to see all season so far. It's the Aldair Sanchez connection. You're bombing up the wing. You're catching the Hearts of Pine in a little bit of transition. They were still mostly back and settled into their block, but you see Aldair come up, floats a perfect cross, and it's just, it's textbook. Holstead runs up. It's just a quick redistribution tap on his foot. Morse can't get there in time, and Rhode Island FC is off to the races in the 34th minute. It's Holstead's second goal, in as many games. Most importantly, he's the first player this season to register back-to-back goals across all competitions. And of course, it's Sanchez's first assist. First of, I hope, as many, because we keep talking about how it's going to be difficult for him to find the playing time against a player like Jorge Quizera. But that's exactly what you want to see from a player like that. Like, it's route one. It's not long ball, but it's get up the wing and just fire something into the box and cause chaos. Thoughts on that first goal?
Yeah, and to have him like play that good, and to kind of give coach that kind of like headache there, it's a good problem to have, where you're like, well, your backup is doing pretty well too.
We have so much talent on the left side, and we have so many questions on the right
just
side.
A void on the right side.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, that good goal there from Clay, near post, kind of just redirect that ball into the net there. Good to see him get on the score again, and like you said, good to see Aldair get his first assist there. And then it was only a few more minutes until we scored another one.
Seconds. Everything is seconds when you talk about time. But Frank Nodarce proves why he was one of the most lethal scoring center backs of the season last year in the USL, scoring his first goal of the 2025 campaign, the 37th minute. So he's just right there. Ball drops into the box, comes back through, hits Nodarce. He turns and pivots and just fires it first time, finds its way through traffic. Morse gets a late read on. There's not a lot of power on it, but because of the angle, because you're having to see that ball go through so many bodies, and just goes right into the net for his first goal. I mean, at that point, I'm telling you, I was almost kicked off the plane. If there was an air marshal on the plane, because I was still very much in the air at that point, that would have been problems. The cool thing is I had this dude, he didn't speak a lick of English, but the second I put on the screen, we became brothers. I wish I had RIFC like stickers or merch to give to him at the time, but we just sat there and watched, and like he had to figure out which team out, because I was also not dressed for the occasion. So he's like, which team do you want to win? And I showed him, and like we got excited together. We woke up the woman that was trying to nap next to us. I felt bad, but I didn't feel that bad. But it was an excellent, excellent time. Frank's notoriously known for scoring goals with his head. He's an aerial dual threat. Just taps this one in. Right time, right place, or did that look like that had all been planned?
I think it's a bit of right time, right place. Um, when we look at the actual game itself, we didn't create any sort of like really high XG chances. Our actual XG on the night was pretty low. So I think that's just our players, doing the best they can with what was given to them.
Very low XG on both sides of this game. 0.45 for Rhode Island FC, 0.6 for the Hearts of Pine. Not a, we didn't even hit double digits on shot attempts on either side, but both teams were very clinical in making sure the shots they did take, they were framed up and on target. 4 for Rhode Island FC, 5 for the Hearts of Pine. In a lot of ways, when you look at the stats, the Hearts of Pine really put a pressure that I have not yet seen on Rhode Island FC, especially considering you think about it, like they're playing USL. They're a USL1 team. They're playing above their station. There's obviously a lot of weight in this match, but it felt and it showed specifically in the possession. I know we thrive with possession, but normally we can break out of possession by catching teams in a transitional block higher up the field. Our press was causing them to make mistakes, but between you and me and the people listening right now, the 57 people listening, Hearts of Pine was very good about breaking out of our press and being a dangerous attacking threat on the wing. Maybe not always being able to get like final third entries or into the box, but between the players that they had, they looked very calm and collected. Meanwhile, I felt like with Rhode Island FC, which we know is one of Jackson Lee's specialties, it felt very much like clear the ball or get the ball into the midfield and let it be decided by our players there. I think there was a little bit of an attribute to the fact that with our double pivot of Haribo and Okiyoshi playing so central in that midfield, we were able to collect a lot more of the recoveries and the second balls. Hearts of Pine under Bobby Murphy was very much constructed as a wing team. They wanted the play to go to the wings. They were happy for Rhode Island FC to force the attack and the defense at times to go out wide. For the Hearts of Pine, they just couldn't answer for the crossing. Whereas for us, we kept it calm and collective. And even when they went out that far, with the exception of one goal, the defense really cleaned up in a lot of ways there. It really felt like each time one of these teams had one of their wingbacks overextended, the other team got punished. Since Hearts of Pine was so often doing that, it kind of seemed like it was more like they were destined to fall apart just because they were overcommitting numbers more often than we were.
Yeah. At the end of the match, when you look at who were like our quote unquote man of the match, it's actually all of our defenders, right? If it wasn't for Yao getting the red card, he actually would have probably been one of the higher rated defenders there as well. You look at the stats that he had, he was winning aerial duels left and right, clearances, tackles. Like our defenders were cleaning up anything that Hearts of Pine threw at us. And I think there was a time when I saw a corner and I saw all of our players lined up against theirs. There was definitely a size difference. I think that really helped us out. It almost looked like men against boys out there for a certain extent, like the way they had it lined up. A lot of our players were just towering over theirs. So I think while they are a very physical team and they really took it to us, at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do if the guy you're fighting against is bigger than you.
Right. And we saw that especially getting battled out in the high block that Rhode Island FC had in that central area. We're not unaccustomed to not having possession. I think that's one of the strengths of this team is they are a transition team. They are a counter team and they can be lethal. But that being said, I keep looking at this Hearts of Pine attack and 46.1% of it down the left side. When we had Sean Fecto on from the Dirigo Union and the Blazing Musket, he warned us. He said, the best combination that exists right now for Portland is the Nathan Messer to Ollie Wright connection. And we saw that, clear as day on a rainy day, no less, with Portland. I guess when you know that so much of the attack is coming that way, if you're Coach Cano, do you do anything different to set up? Because, Clay got the goal, but he was also the defensive man charged with task, to keep Ollie Wright locked down or an overlapping Messer. I saw multiple times Holstead and Messer kind of go at it, and you could see like, we may have been teammates once, but now you are dead to me. And it was exciting to watch. When you know that so much of your attack is stacked, we talked about Hearts of Pine suffering from not having Liotti. Was this surprising in the way that they set up, or was this just more like one coach's system beating another coach's system?
I think more of the later, one coach's system beating the other. The only time you really have to, really account for something like this is when we're talking about absolute world-class players, right? Where you're like, if we let Mbappe on the ball, he's going to kill us. So you stack one side and you just frustrate him and hope that no one else on the team, gets any love that night. The reality is, as great as that combination has been, it's still a championship side versus as a USL one side. And, Messer was part of the team last year. So I think coach would be very aware of what it is that he can do. So they definitely brought it up and probably talked about it, but you don't alter your tactics, based upon that.
I got really scared when Nate Messer, every time he went up to do a set piece, I was like, this is the one. This is the worldly.
Oh, yeah,
that's
this
coming.
is the free kick he's going to score.
Yeah, every time. I didn't care about anyone else, but every time with him. Moving on real fast, just want to quickly run through the rest of this so we can get to the Detroit part. But to kind of go through this rundown, it was a rough night for the ref. It was a rough night for both teams. I didn't know who the ref was ahead of time. U.S. Soccer didn't release it, but afterwards pulled head ref Thomas Snyder's stats. Before this game, he was averaging 7.5 fouls allowed per yellow card, which was actually pretty high considering most refs are averaging about 4 before a card happens right now. You could tell both of these teams getting frustrated with some of the calls. We're going to especially go over Karifa's in a second. I watched the Frank Nodarce card against, was it Wada? Wada completely sold an embellishment. Like Frank steps up to give him clear, puts his hands up in the air, does like it's not going to be me, don't call it. Wada just sells it right in front of the ref, and Nodarce gets a yellow. I guess the question would be, looking at this from a perspective of what this ref did to kind of manage this game. This was a rivalry forming. These two teams very much, there's respect to it, but they both wanted to win. Did Thomas Snyder have a good game?
I don't think so. I think that he made bad calls on both sides. I think there are some things he gave us that I was like, oh, that's pretty soft. Like, I'll take it, but that's not great refereeing. I think that's the unfortunate reality when you get down to this level, is that, especially with all the different Open Cup matches going on, what does the reffing pool look like for that? So,
was he consistent in his terribleness then? Is that a fair thing to give?
I mean,
to
I guess he was consistently bad. I would rather, when refs are really tight or really lenient, if they stick to that, fine, I'll take that. But the problem was just, all the calls were bad. And there are times where it felt like he should have called the foul, but didn't. And then, I don't know, it was just kind of all over the place.
Meanwhile, looking back on the next big controversy of the night, the goal Titus Washington scores with the assist from Punandron in the 65th minute, gave some life to the Hearts of Pine, created the spark to where they thought maybe a complete rout, a complete comeback could happen. Obviously didn't pan out, but a lot of jokes online. We heard this whenever Vegas stumbled. Jackson Lee lets one in, and the question on my mind, the question from fans is, would Koke Vegas have saved that?
No, I don't think that was anyone's fault. I don't think it matters which one of our goalkeepers was there. It just tight angle, hit low and hard. So it was just I think it was just a good finish from Titus.
I mean, Karifa, was still on the pitch at that time. He had an advantage in stepping up, and I think he was so focused on staying ahead of him to keep him out wide that it didn't really seem like it was going to be one of those things that he needed to. But like Washington just takes the shot from so far out.
And that's the thing, we forced them to take shots from far out. So, and it was kind of a tight angle. I don't know what it looked like from the other side of the net. Did Lee maybe not have a great view of it till it was too late?
Unfortunately, the CBS broadcast team is good, but they're not that good. I will say, we have to acknowledge Lee on the night, and we can't condemn him for letting one goal in. Not only was it his
Oh,
first.
he was great on the night.
Oh,
overall.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was his first start of the 2025 season, like we said, 12th overall for RIFC. He had 4 saves on the night, including the incredible vital one where he made the last minute save, top right corner for him, punches the ball out and deflects it. He kept us in it with the second half stoppage time one, which we'll talk about that stoppage time in a second. There's an obvious love between Vegas and Lee. We've talked about this at length, that we're blessed by having 2 starting caliber keepers right now. I think that when you look at Washington's goal, it sometimes can just be a good goal that has a difficult read. And with the conditions what they were, I don't think that there's anything bad. Now, that being said, I don't think Lee has done enough yet to earn the starting spot over Vegas. But I am very comfortable that as long as Lee remains happy and he knows that the chances that it will be rewarded to him continue to be so, I think we have a fantastic keeper, and we should just all be really, really happy with the time we have with Lee. I do fully expect him to start against the Hearts of Pine and Westchester in the Jägermeister Cup. And I have all the players, Jason, that you would keep on for the game against the New England Revolution. If there's one player that you say we're going to keep on that field, it's going to be Jackson Lee. He deserves it after, like, everyone else. I mean, Koke Vegas is going to get as many starts as he possibly can, unless he, God forbid, gets hurt. Jackson Lee is the only player as of right now that, isn't a lock-on starter that has absolutely deserved to play the Revolution in May.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to ask, and you kind of already answered my question there. When it comes to like Jägermeister Cups, how will we look at those? Because USL is pushing them, so they're actually all weekend matches, right? And what they're doing is just moving one of the league games to a midweek game, and then you have your Jägermeister Cup. But do you field somewhat of a rotated side there, or do you rotate for the league match?
I would rotate for the Jägermeister, because like Kevin Vang captained the Open Cup game last year, didn't get on the field. Cole Dewhurst traveled, didn't get on. Rio Hope Gunn, the 25-day contract player, went on before Cole Dewhurst. To reward these players for all the efforts they do off of the pitch, it is the right thing to do. Obviously, Kano has to put out a competitive product, but like, I just don't see how you don't use the Jägermeister Cup exactly for that. And then you're not punished in, maybe they don't play against the USL Championship team that we have to face, like in Hartford or the Riverhounds, but at least, against the USL 1 teams.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's maybe a good shout in the similar sense where we mentioned earlier how MLS teams would field your 2 squads.
I hope Richie Williams shows up with the entire New England Revolution too, because that's the only way Caleb Porter can like absolve himself. Like, you can't fire me. I wasn't even there. We got to develop these kids so that you can make money off of our academy products. So,
will someone think of the kids?
Gosh, if Richie Williams showed up to that game, I can only imagine what Tom Quinlan would be screaming at him.
They would then use that as an excuse. It's like, you didn't beat the real Revolution.
I mean, that's what you chose to field. Let's get into the big one we haven't talked about. Krifa Yaus, 2 yellows. What that means, the future implication of the eventual sending off with that red card that he earned. 70th minute, he gets shown his second yellow card, but it's a second yellow that comes just 2 minutes and 5 seconds after the first one. We have not seen faster yellow card accumulations in this team. Like, that is a new record that Krifa Yaus now gets to earn. It means that he'll be, at least as of right now, unavailable for the round of 32. I was screaming. I was now at an airport terminal when that one happened. I had made it. I had landed in Philadelphia. I was watching it off my phone, and I was screaming because, one, you don't do that when you're on a second yellow. You just don't. You got to play it tighter than that. And second, the first one wasn't even a yellow card. It was a hard tackle. It was a hard, bone crunching tackle. I forget who he went through for that ball, but they felt it. They felt it yesterday. They probably are feeling it right now. It's a hard tackle, but it was a clean tackle, and that's what you expect a ref to get right in those moments. Krifa Yaus, we can say a lot about, like, he's been slow at times, he's been planting his roots, and he hasn't like moved to the ball with a priority. Krifa Yaus actually doesn't make a lot of bad tackles. Like, if he's going to commit, we've seen him just be the wall and destroy. He doesn't usually do that kind of thing. So that was a bit of a surprise. And then, of course, I had the advantage of watching it in replay at the time in slow motion. And even the broadcasters are like, that's not That's not that's not a yellow card. But here we are, 2 minutes and 5 seconds later. He's now off the pitch. We're down a man. Thoughts on how you took it while you were there on the live experience and overall perception of how that went down?
Yeah, none of us thought the first one was a yellow either. And then we saw the second one and we're like, well, you kind of you did this to yourself, I guess. It is what it is. We weren't happy about it, but what are you gonna do? We at that point we're like, all right, it's it's squeaky bum time.
Yeah, and I mean, we only got benefited by the fact, talking again about the inconsistency of Snyder, Mikey Lopez should have been sent off of the pitch, I think, by minute 12. He got the first yellow card of the game in the 5th minute, a rough tackle himself, and then 6 minutes later he goes for a challenge, very similar to Krifa Yao's, except Yao hit the midfield or hit the body of someone that he didn't see running through. Mikey Lopez put his foot up, caught a player, and the ref said, no, I can't call this because if I do, I have to send you off. So it felt like a benefit of the doubt. I kind of want to find out where Thomas Snyder lives. I'm starting to get really suspicious about these refs, but Krifa Yao's second yellow, absolutely a yellow card any day of the week. We only got benefited from Mikey Lopez finally kicking himself off the pitch, but it came so far into the game. The only benefit at that point is it equalized the number of players on the pitch. But like I said earlier, I don't think players knew what a foul was and what a card-worthy foul was on the night. When Lopez did his, I saw Jackson Lee run out and just put his hand up like, that's 5. I was like, where are you going? Like, get back in the box. You don't even know what this is yet. And then I realized that he was arguing and advocating for the red card to come out. It was very difficult. This has serious implications now because, like, we talk about the Revolution lineup. We saw this team stack up our main 3 center backs and our main 3 defenders because guess what? That's all we have right now, right? We are now out of our center spine option, at least for now, against the Revolution. These are problems ahead that we're going to have to address. I have heard a rumor that potentially the club is exploring any and every option to have that yellow card appealed. There's no understanding of how that works within the U.S. soccer system. Obviously, you don't like what we know of appeals from a disciplinary committee have always been red cards. But because this is a single elimination, if there's clear and obvious evidence and there is some way to get that card overturned, you better believe Conno Smith right now is like exploring every single option to get his main center back on this pitch for the Revolution.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that they would try. I think realistically it won't happen just because it sets a weird precedent where
you got to give the refs some sort of leg, right?
It's not that. It's you give an inch, they're going to want a mile. Like, so where do you stop the line?
When it's not must-win single elimination games and you lose a starting player?
I think at that point they have to kind of look at how do we hold our refs accountable for poor performances. I think error is just a part of the game. And it's unfortunate that it is, but it happens. And sometimes it benefits us and sometimes it doesn't.
So. Agreed. It sucks, but also at the same time, Krifa, yeah, you know better. You know better when you have that yellow, especially that soon. It's so fresh on your mind. Like, it's like I equivalent the same to getting a speeding ticket. If you're someone who speeds and then you finally get caught for the first day, first week, you're like, oh, they could get out. They could get me anytime now. I'm gonna go the speed limit.
It takes a while before you start going
get that
fast
confidence again. Yeah, Krifa Yao like never took his foot off the pedal. He's
it's
like,
the same thing coaches will say.
I won't
like,
get a second yellow.
First 5 minutes of the match, no nonsense. Let's feel the game out. Don't let's try and figure out what's going on before you just go full throttle and leave the back door open there.
Mikey Lopez didn't get that advice on the game. Speaking of time, though, there was a 2-minute gap between Krifa Yao's mistakes, but I think the longest minute we saw of the game was in extra time. It was 6 minutes of added time. Final clock was over 11. I was freaking out. I almost didn't make my final plane transfer because I was trying to watch that and board at the same time. Curious, you were there. I mean, I would have been screaming. I would have been like counting. Like, obviously there were mechanisms because of the way the ball had control under the Hearts of Pine. There was pressure there. But do we know how to track time in a game that is all about managing time?
That was weird because you felt, okay, 6 minutes is always kind of give or take. But we got to 11. It felt almost 12 by the time we were done. Numerous fans did the whole thing where as soon as it hit 90, started a timer to kind of like, okay, kind of keep track of like how much time we have left. And then it just kept going. I joked with of someone nearby me. I was like, is the magic of the cup the refs just trying to give the other team a chance to to get back into the game?
Hold on, real fast, chat. I need you guys to look up Thomas Snyder, like where he lives. Don't dox him or anything. I just want to know where. I just want to know where he lives.
It's
not his address. I want to know where he's from. Sorry, I want to know his. I want to know his
okay.
hometown. Yeah, I should have been really clear. I don't want to mobilize the Rhode Island FC Army here, but I do want to know where Thomas Snyder's hometown is. And if it's
what do you think?
if it's
He's a
Maine,
Mainer?
oh, he's like an Augusta, Maine, like capital Mainer. I feel it now. I know it. Anyways, sorry, I interrupted you.
Trying to tell us our fans to dox people. No, but I was just kind of joking, but it did get me thinking there. It's like, well, I'm thinking this because like I have a stake in the game. And I was like, maybe I should pay more attention to this in terms of the Open Cup. Are the refs allowing things to try and get teams back into it? And I don't believe in these whole crazy conspiracies or anything. And I was actually watching, the Burrito Boys last night take
R.I.P. If this was actually alcohol and not just water, I'd pour one out right on this laptop.
And so, the Burrito Boys were actually getting lots of calls fouled, and that's just because the way they played, and it never felt like that ref was actually, even though they are the darling of the Open Cup, 1993 winners, played in the 1994 CONCACAF Champions League. What legends! I really wish I could buy a Burrito Boys jersey.
I'm gonna find one. I don't even need it to be my size. I just need a Burrito Boys.
But anyways, that ref was not doing them any favors. So
we've got an answer in the chat. He's from New York, so obviously he's anti-RFC because he hates Rhode Island. But he might like Maine more. They've got they got Arcadia National Park, Bar Harbor.
He just wasn't a great ref. No. I think there were some fouls that like he gave us that were very soft.
I remember actually on the Mikey Lopez yellow, we had advantage, and he called off the advantage. Like he fouled Aldair, but I think Frank did the overlap, and so Frank had a clear run in on goal from the wing, and he called like, what? Like who does that? I don't know.
Yeah, it was just not great roughing. So it kind of is what it is. How it became 11 minutes of extra time,
nobody knows.
No idea. Maybe the rain broke his watch or something, and.
All right, we got to move on, but obviously it was a great game. I will say this in terms of rivalry, maybe this is like, give me the 30-second review. Did it feel like there was a poison that had been put amongst these two fan groups, or was everyone very cordial? Like I saw some people online afterwards say like, oh, screw you, Maine. I didn't feel that way. I still love the Hearts of Pine as an organization, as a fan group, just on these particular games.
I don't know why anyone would have anything against Maine. I think
New England's full of toxic people, dude. That's what the snow and the cold does. It hurts people on the inside, so they have to hurt others online.
They were a great group of people.
Fantastic.
They supported their team to the end. They had one guy with a pine branch running through their crowd when celebrating when they scored the goal. I mean, I was happy for them. They were having a great time. I think they're going to give us another tough match when they come down. I think that this could be more of a rivalry than our other neighbors. I think it'll be a more respectful rivalry because I don't think we hate each other. Maybe only for those 90 minutes we won't we won't really love each other, but afterwards we're like, hey, good game.
All right, good to know. Let's get on to this Detroit preview. We're going to go lickety split here because we're already running out of time. Rhode Island FC takes on Detroit City FC this weekend. Looking at this Detroit squad, Danny Dichio takes this team to third place last season in the 2024 campaign, a 15-11-8 record. They ended the season in third place with that home field advantage. Honestly, this was one of the best defenses in the league, second best overall, allowing only 32 goals. The only other team that did better in terms of goal difference and goals allowed was Pittsburgh Riverhounds, who did not do nearly as well when it came to the standings. So Detroit, really just an all-star kind of season for them. They didn't have as bad of a goal differential, but they did still struggle pretty mightily on offense. Then midfielder and DCFC star Maxi Rodriguez. I don't know if you've heard that name before, Jason.
I heard he's pretty good.
He was mostly the conduit to generating a majority of their attacking chances, as well as being their leading goal scorer last season. And then I don't know, he just left and went on to I believe they call it greener pastures, or amber and blue pastures. They crashed out of the USL playoffs last season at Keyworth Stadium, losing 3-1 in penalties to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. this team is definitely trying to build off their success from last season, but it's been at the cost of kind of swapping out their attacking cores. So right now, the only service that they retained was Ben Morris. Otherwise, they got rid of all of the other players. Yazid Matthews, Elvis Ammo, and Victor Becerra, all gone from the team. And then if you include, Maxi Rodriguez going into free agency and their leading goal scorer, a lot of questions were left for Dicchio to solve in the offseason this year. Replacing them have been a couple of newcomers. Darren Smith, there's the Smith brothers, I guess you could say, but Darren Smith and Jordan Adebayo Smith are going to be the new ones strengthening that forward attack. And then I think where Dicchio really made the upgrade in the midfield was he went from one player to two in getting double Hartford Athletic alumni here, guys. So if we're going to get angry about this team, I know Detroit already kind of it's not a team that RIFC fans really enjoy playing against for a lot of different reasons, but their center spine is now a double pivot with Jay Chapman, former Athletic player who was loaned out to the Battery, who gave us a lot of problems in the Eastern Conference Final, who should have been sent off after a second yellow, but did not. We won't need to bring that back up. But then also former DCF player and also former Hartford Athletic player, Ryan Williams, an Englishman who is very much been around the USL system for quite a while, and we'll kind of get into his pedigree in a minute. This team is already showing the fruits of their labor early on by kind of making the moves that they need to make. They're, again, right now tied on points. They could be in second if you want to look at it from a point perspective in the USL East, but because of goal differential, they go down to third place, but they have 11 points. They've been kind of weirdly inconsistent, though. They're beating teams that I guess maybe people thought they shouldn't. They're dropping points against teams that they would, expect to kind of earn more points against. But they've definitely established themselves early on as a contender for one of the top four. And I think kind of quietly starting to build a name as a perennial powerhouse. Like we always talk about Lou, we always talk about Charleston, and then we look at the standings and those two teams are there. Detroit City may very well be a team that can start talking about being a deserved place amongst the top four in the East.
Yeah, like you said, very much last year a difficult team to play against. They've started this year kind of like being a little more offensive, though. They are actually the second highest.
They are offensive, but not in goals.
And so actually, I mean, I'd say both. They are the second highest scoring in the Eastern Conference, only second to Loudoun United, RIP. But they've also given up 7 goals. So they're not kind of the defensive stalwarts that we knew from last year with all that kind of chop and change that they've gone through in the offseason. Right now, their offense is firing. Will that continue? Are they going to, like you said, though, there's some inconsistency, but they are scoring goals. So will they go through some sort of identity crisis drought, or is this just, Dicchio knowing how to run a ship and it kind of he can kind of swap people out and it's not going to change too much? I think that still remains to be seen. Still a little early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean they've definitely shown that they're not invulnerable, right? So what you can expect from this type of team is right now they play in a style similar to how Coach Kano plays, not quite the same setup. You can normally expect it to be some version of like a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-1-2. They're very heavy on their wing back play, so similar to what we just saw in the Hearts of Pine. Expect numbers kind of crashing out to the sides. Expect this team to overcommit in both the offense and the defense when it comes to those times. They've been heavily reliant on not Ryan Williams, but Reese Williams, as well as Villanueva. I can talk, I promise. But this is a team unlike Rhode Island FC, and this is where the big differentiation seems to be in watching the tape that I did. They want to have control of the ball, right? Like Rhode Island FC wants to catch you and then just beat you. Detroit seems really content right now with building up possession, building up the 2 to 3 pass combinations, changing the direction of the field, and then punishing on a flank. They want to break you down from the back. And they're not really a team that's known for midfield transition or trying to play the long ball and trying to just see what they can create up top. So I think that's going to be really the big differentiation. That being said, if a team is notoriously dangerous on their outside wings, and so are we, how do you set this team up for success then? We talked, we haven't really talked about this yet. Is Jorge Quazera, we know he's the better player, but is he the more complete player, right? Is Aldair's defensive game better than Quizares. It's something we're gonna
Is
have to
that
kind of park.
case by case basis maybe?
Yeah, and I would even argue then that we don't have a long enough number of games to make that determination just yet. So it'll be interesting to see, going into the head-to-head record specifically here. It's not a great look for Rhode Island FC. They're on a 0-1-1 record with Detroit. The home game with RIFC was one of only 2 matches where RIFC failed to answer with a goal of their own after being scored on with multiple goals against their opponent. And it was the only game that happened at Byrne Stadium last year. It was probably one of the most incomplete games that we saw, and it kind of left a nasty taste in the fans' mouths.
Yeah, that wasn't really a great match. Maybe one of the worst there. If you actually go back and look at that squad too, like we really hadn't found ourselves yet. Turnbull was playing left back. McGlynn was in the center of the midfield. Sadie was up top. On top of that, Smith and Alves played a decent amount of minutes. And that's not to say that any of those players are bad, right? Turnbull's a great player, but he's not a left back. I think we just didn't realize at that time that all those players were maybe not for this team. We were still that was before we were really found our identity. I think after that match was the 2-2 draw with Memphis. And that was where we kind of had that whole identity crisis where, what was it? Kano was like, what kind of team do you guys want to be? And then we went to Lou's house and thrashed
We found out what team we wanted to be. Meanwhile, so that was the home game, not ideal. And then the 1-1 draw at Keyworth Stadium. It was a tough game. It was pretty much more a consistent game, though. It seemed like at that point, because this was the big CBS game last year for Rhode Island, it seemed like we had started to kind of find our identity, find our feet on ourselves. Both teams consistently created chances in the 90 minutes. But the game was the first leg of a really crucial 3-game break across 7 days. It was bookended first with the Detroit City match. We had the Indy 11 midweek game, and then we had the home leg of El Clamico at the end of that week. So it was probably one of our longest kind of.
Was that where Anking got injured?
And it was, and yeah, so that was the last part of it. So not only did we kind of got a rescue point here. This was when Clay Holstead buried one at this was one of his earliest, or maybe it was his second. Clay only scores bangers, but we kind of got a rescue point there after he scored kind of in the dying minutes of the game. But like you said, one of the outcomes of it was we saw Isaac Anking get his season-ending injury. So no one felt like that was a game to be proud of at the end of the day. It was tough. So I think there's a lot that was learned from this team last year when it comes to Detroit City's tactics. And it's now just going to be a question of, did Coach Kano learn the lessons that he needed to learn? Or is there more to come from, is it Le Rouge? Le Rouge? Is it the Le Rouge? It'll be interesting to see. And the fact that we're playing them now away first, it's going to be the first look. So let's get through these refs and kind of talk about that really quickly.
Yeah. So for this match, Detroit City versus Rhode Island at Keyworth Stadium, the head ref is going to be the one and only Joshua Encarnacion. Famously refed one really bad game, I guess, but then we were concerned about the next match and he was okay. So we'll get to that here in a second. Let me just get through the rest of them. Assistant ref 1, Krish Chaffrons, and assistant ref 2, Christian Little, and the fourth official, Ryan Homick.
Yeah, and like you said, if Encarnacion sounds familiar, it's because he did last ref a game with Rhode Island FC where he was in charge of El Clamico, the home leg for us. Like you said, that was obviously a favorable result for us, but it was a very scrappy game. There were over 44 fouls called in that game. It was a very intense game, a lot of emotions.
He didn't even red card their fans when they're setting off fireworks. Like, come on, clear and obvious right there.
Clear and obvious. But he did start his reffing journey with us in a earlier home game at Byrne Stadium, and that was the 0-0 draw against the Charleston Battery that saw the first red card, or I guess some people have been saying it wasn't a red card because it was just a double yellow ejection. Depends on the technicality of what you want to say to it, but the first red card in club history with Connor McGlynn getting sent off. Interestingly enough, that game was a pivotal moment in kind of how Kano viewed the reffing for the league because, one, the Battery only got one yellow card despite having 21 fouls on the night, and two, it was the first time in the scrum where he had mentioned, he didn't know yet if his team was getting a bad reputation around the league of being a physical an aggressive team, and his opponents were just learning to like take soft hits and like sell it to the ref as a new expansion side. But you could tell he was really frustrated that it had been, I think, the third or fourth game in a row where like we were just getting called for some really hard fouls that were just players playing the game. And he said that there was either a learning curve for the refs, or like he said he wasn't going to tell his team to dive because like that's not what champions do. But you could tell that was one of the first games where he was getting really frustrated.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rough match, but like you said, later on match against Hartford, I mean, maybe part of that too was just because of the opponent we're playing. So I guess a little bit of hesitancy going up against a tough opponent. What is that going to look like? We're gonna have to wait and see.
Who do we have not available as of right now for the team?
Yeah, so Isaac Anking's still out. The ACL tear was still looking.
I bet you he travels and just yells at fans all day.
Actually, I think he should just stay home so he doesn't get broken again. Just stay away from that cursed place. Ugo Bacharach is still out. Hopefully, we'll hear about him soon. We're maybe month and a half at this point.
I would say less than, because I think I heard the 1 to 2 months in
like right
before the first game. So yeah, like technically he should be at least close to recovery by the end of April. Like maybe he'd be ready for the San Antonio home game, or at least close to it.
At least like hanging around the squad, maybe. I mean, we actually saw him in up in Lewiston.
Oh, he traveled
with the squad.
Did he have a brace on? Did he look mobile?
I don't know. Happy? I just, some fans were pointing him out, and so I'm blind.
Like, look at the tall guy, the super like now. So you've seen him now in person. He's ridiculously tall.
I mean, from afar, yeah.
From afar. And then Danny Rivera is the other player. Exciting to see. He's now posting like training videos of his recovery journey. He started to do like ladder exercises. So whatever's going on with him, because I did see him in practice in the earliest stages of the preseason, all the way through like the first game. So whatever's happening, hopefully he's close. We definitely need some defensive reinforcements right now. As for the Detroit City, didn't find anything worthy of note. Didn't look like there was anything really going on. But we don't talk to Detroit people as often as we should. So any guess? If you guys know that there's an injured player or someone that won't be available, feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll share it when we get out there. But let's talk about this Rhode Island FC formation and what we think is most likely the team that will go up there and beat Detroit City this weekend.
Yeah, here is our estimated lineup, subject to be incorrect. Koke Vegas in net. We're looking at a back three of Grant Stoneman, Karifa Yao, and Frank Nodarse. Midfield five of Clay Holstead. We're thinking he's probably still going to be on that right midfield, the right wing back position, with Maxi Rodriguez, Marky Barra, and Noah Fuson in that midfield three. Noah Fuson probably being that kind of 10 position, give him some ability to roam there and be that creator, the golden playmaker of last year, with Jojea Quizera out on the left. And then, of course, JJ Williams and Chico up top.
Some questions came in. They saw in the availability report Chico and Marky Barra not available for the game day selection. Lots of questions like, what's the injury? Tell us the injury. And, you have to understand, when you look at the availability report, that's exactly what it is. It's just who's available to play. Now, I could be completely wrong. I didn't get my chance to touch in with the team this week because of the short turnarounds. So this is all speculation. I couldn't get Con Ozier this week to find out and confirm. But that's not an injury report when you see that come up. That is strictly availability. Like if Zach Haribo was on there for yellow or for red card, they'd say the discipline. Jojea Quizera has been on the availability report for international duty. So we saw Marky Barr. I don't think I saw Chico in the photos afterwards, but he was up there hanging out with the team. I think this is just a case of people going to say, like, Rhode Island FC trying to beat the smart fans and going, why didn't you bring Marky Barr and Chico to start or like available to play off this game? Why is Kevin Vang available when you have Chico? So like, what are you doing, RIFC? What are you doing, Conno Smith? I think this is just what that is. I have not heard anything around the clubhouse that there is any reason to why those players are not healthy and ready to go. If I'm wrong, then, you've got Zach Haribo ready to go as a replacement. You have Taimu Okiyoshi, and then you can move, Fuson up to the striker. So like, this isn't really a far off formation. And if there are really truly parts that aren't available for any reason, we'll find out on game day. But like, I just don't think that's what it is. And I think this is the best starting 11 you can have right now. In addition to the fact that this is basically a copy of what we saw in Oakland. So like, this is really where we're going to start to see if these players can gel, and then sprinkle in Zach Haribo and see if he can make a starting lock on for himself. But until some more players get back from injury, I think this is what we got.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close.
Let's move into the Detroit City FC side. So they are in that 3-4-3 positioning. You have Carlos Herrera in net for Detroit. Their back three consists of Michael Bryant, Stephen Carroll, and Devin Amu-Mensah. And then in that midfield four, you've got the Williams brothers of Riss and Ryan Williams. They're not brothers. I just like to say that. Jay Chapman and Alex Villanueva. And then the front three, it's most likely going to be, you're going to see Darren Smith out on the wing. You're going to see Yesiel Sidnino on the right side in some capacity. He's kind of more of an attacking midfielder that he's best known for, but he can play in the striker position. He reminds me of like Florian Velo to a certain extent. And then I've got Connor Runtz in the front of this, but you could see the other Smith brother. Like they've just got brothers all across these teams. But they most likely will play in some sort of version of a 3-4-3. The players that they did play for the Open Cup, which is an important storyline to talk about, Detroit City has one less day of rest because they played last night against Westchester in their 3-1 defeat, or their 3-1 victory, excuse me. So they're coming off of rest. They heavily rotated the squad. Amu-Mensah and Bryant both actually swapped for each other on the night. They only had to play 45 minutes. They didn't have to go into extra time. So this team, the team you see on the screen right now, did not have to play a majority of any minutes for their Open Cup match. It's a lot different of a conversation that we have to have for Rhode Island FC because our entire back line had to play all 90 minutes. Most of our midfield and our wingers had to play sizable minutes. Like, we don't have the rotation and the rest that Detroit now has, but we have a longer amount of time between games, and we had one extra day of recovery. I think that's about as even as you can get. But if you were to look for like which storyline has the better one, Detroit has the freshest legs, if that makes sense. So let's talk about the players that we want to talk about. Jason, who do you want to bring up first?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Yesiel Sidnino. He's got to be one of the most interesting players in the championship. 25-year-old Ecuadorian, second season for Detroit. He's getting a much bigger role this season, earning himself 6 starts in 6 matches. Only starting 3 in the last 15 matches from last season. Maxi's departure certainly kind of left the door open there for someone to step into those boots and kind of become that creative force. And so far, Sidnino is kind of being that guy. He's kind of all over the place. If you look up a heat map of him, he's all over the field. He's got explosive movement, incisive runs, and he's one of the hardest players in the league to mark because of that, right? He's finding himself all over the field, so you can't follow him on his little adventures. He ranks in the top 13% for chances created this season with 8. So he's not being lazy on the ball here. He's getting active. He's getting up there. He's attacking, and he's kind of already played 3 different like positions up top there. They do like we expect a kind of a 3-4-3, but we've seen a 3-4-1-2, kind of the same thing, but it's more of how far forward are you pushing some of those players. So we're kind of curious to see exactly how Dicchio will decide to use him on Saturday, but it's pretty much a guarantee that he's going to be out there.
Meanwhile, I've got Ryan Williams, the one I wanted to talk about tonight. Williams is no stranger to the USL, having first played for the Ottawa Fury FC. That is a name I have not heard in a very long time. While with Ottawa, he earned Fans Player of the Year in 2016, and then he eventually went on to sign with Hartford Athletic. I'm waiting for the booze to come across the chat. He signed with Detroit City FC. So this is the interesting part: is Williams is no stranger to Detroit system, or to Danny Dicchio for that matter, having recently most played in 2024 with Detroit. He had 11 starts across 23 appearances with that side, and he was ranked in the team's top 5 in passing accuracy with 82.2%, and served as the primary dead ball specialist. So that's more credit to him. I guess what's interesting is he had a little stint away, and then eventually signed a very last minute addition. He didn't come onto this team until March, so he basically missed the entirety of the preseason and rejoined with the Detroit City FC in 2025. Now, I think this is a player that Dick Gear realized he needed to have back, and he knew that, especially with Rodriguez gone, Chapman is a very complete player, but Chapman thrives when he has another complete player playing right next to him. I mean, if you look at what Charleston Battery have, like he was alongside Juan David Torres and Aaron Malloy, two incredible midfielders. Or I mean, I know Torres is actually technically more like a winger, but like you get what I'm saying. And so I think Dick here realized like I need to get a player of the right caliber and went back out. Don't know if he had to sign him off or if Williams wasn't getting playing time with his former team, but he comes back and joins. Honestly, he's known for his technical skill. We already mentioned his passing accuracy, his set piece proficiency. Uh, he's got valuable leadership. He, like I said, he's a USL journeyman at this point. He has the experience. He has the locker room, chutzpah. So he's going to definitely be complimenting Detroit City FC's midfield this game and for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and the last one we wanted to bring up here is Reese Williams. Bit of a classic old school style wing back, up and down the pitch, 90 minutes, swinging in crosses here, making sure he gets back there to defend as well. Bit of a seasoned vet for Detroit, being his 4th season with them. But there's definitely been some improvements in the squad. Like we talked about, they're kind of being a little bit more attacking here. So he's been a bit more of a threat going forward and creating that danger for the opponents. He's created the most big chances this season and will be a constant threat for either Adlier or Jojea, whoever ends up lining up there at the left wing back spot. He also thrives in the press, being able to very quickly jump onto teams, attempting to play out from the back. And against a player like Jojea, his eagerness may cause some issues there. Jojea likes to get forward there. So depending on if Reese Williams is having a good match, we might need to kind of give some extra assistance there to kind of defend him.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing with the 3-5-2 is it's really never just a 3 back line, whether Koke's up or another player's dropping back. Like the team swings when they need to. But I think you're right. It seems like whichever team catches their other wing back out of sorts can really do some damage on the night to this group. What I don't think is going to be an X factor in any way, shape, or form, and it's not to discount his abilities, but I think the return of Maxi Rodriguez isn't going to be a game changer, and I hope I'm wrong now. I hope Maxi gets a hat trick against this team.
Do you think, is it because it's still too early in his like gelling process with us? Like we've definitely seen that he is a great player, but I also don't think we've seen the best of him yet.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Coach, because of the chop and change he's had to do with unanswered, answers at right wing back, I think he's had to move Maxi around, and Maxi's a bit of a utility player. Again, we talked about this I think a week or two ago, where we said we thought he was this attacking prolific cam, but when you look deeper into his stats, he's just a really complete midfielder, and he's just as good on his defensive attributes as he is his offensive ones. And I think if Kano's building this team for success against Detroit this weekend, I think you thrive on the defensive aspect. I think you see him, and I'm not limiting him to like the double pivot of being a more traditional 8 or a 6 here, but Rodriguez is still in the top percentage right now for blocks, interceptions, recoveries, aerial duel winning. Like he's put in so much more work on the backside of the ball than he has moving forward in the attack. But that being said, too, he's still sitting there. He's got 7 shots for the season so far, 3 of those on target. So he's just as clinical as he was before. His passing, his vertical passing right now in long balls are still very admirable. He's over 52% when he's tried to cut lines. I think we're going to see him deeper in the midfield here. And so because of that, if Dickio remembers Rodriguez as this like forward threat, because that's how he had to use him from time to time, then it just kind of depends on how these two teams set up against each other on the day. But like, I don't think there's any pressure for Rodriguez to have to find a way to score against his previous team. And likewise, if they are trying to figure out how to contain a player like Rodriguez, they're wasting probably more effort than needed, because the problems are going to come from the wings. The problems are going to come from a very angry JJ Williams that he didn't score in the Open Cup, and a sneaky Chico and a Fuson who's hungry to get on the goal contribution seat there. So I don't mean it in the sense that he's not a good player. I just don't think he's going to be the problem that Detroit City may think he has, because of all the success that he had in Detroit. So
that's fair.
Let's move on. Midweek struggle, we already talked about it. I guess I want to ask, Open Cup momentum here. It's 2 wins in a row. Rhode Island FC is flying high. Meanwhile, Detroit has their win. Is there momentum to be had here, or is there just, is it the legacy of these two teams have started to build against each other? What's going in Rhode Island FC's favor right now?
I think momentum can be built here. You definitely take that and say we're 2 in a row. Let's keep that going. You look back and say, like, what has gone well for us? 2 pretty solid defensive performances. So we were kind of concerned a little while ago that maybe there was something going on back there. So at this point, we know that they can do it. So how do you build from that? So you go out there.
Do you have to build, or do you just spend the momentum? Like, building it is game by game, right? Like, don't you want to like spend the currency you've earned and just be like, hey, you know what, Detroit, you can't touch us because we're just flying too high?
Well, momentum is, it's continuous, right? So you have to keep it going. So, I mean, I guess depending upon the way you look at that, are you continuously building on top of that?
Hashtag not a philosophical podcast.
Or is it just like you are an, unstoppable force that keeps moving forward? I don't think we're at the unstoppable force part because
we haven't hit Lou yet. We got to hit Lou City before we can call ourselves unstoppable.
Got to get to Lou, destroy them, and keep. That's when you start to hit light speed. You go through the stargates.
You hit the ludicrous speed and you move on.
Yeah. Right now we're still kind of like, okay, so we've got some momentum going, we've got some steam rolling. Like, let's keep this engine going.
And then I want to talk. We talked about the defense. They all put in 90-minute performances, with the exception of Creef. I guess he gave himself a little extra rest and recovery.
He wanted to hit the showers early.
But their team is going to be much more crispy when it comes to their back line. Is this a game that's decided by the fatigue of only getting 4 days and you're playing 2 games? Or again, like I kind of asked, this team didn't have a game the week prior. So like the legs, these are all younger men than you and I. They can handle this, right? Like should stamina be a factor in this game for our defensive line?
I think they should be able to handle it. We did see a little bit of rotation there. And then there's, and not to say that it doesn't tire you out, but if you're doing a lot of defending and kind of staying in the same area, maybe you're not putting as much mileage on your legs if it's like a track meet type of game. So I think that they should be fine. And then from here, they have a regular, week off. There's no midweek games coming up. So
we've seen the difficulty of Keyworth. Coach Cano himself once told me Keyworth is one of the most difficult stadiums to play in. Thoughts? Is that an advantage that Detroit has?
To a certain extent. It can be a hostile environment there. Their fans are very passionate. So I expect them to, fill the stands there. And, they can be a tough team to play against. But, I mean, we also went to Lou and beat Lou and no one else could do that. So I don't think that this team is going to go in there and be afraid because they've taken down giants before.
And then, kind of the real final question, we're still on this momentum. Would a draw be acceptable? Right now, we haven't yet found a win against this team. It's only a handful of teams we haven't gotten all 3 points, at least one of our outings, especially on the Eastern Conference side of things. Would a draw be acceptable on the road after back-to-back wins, or for this momentum, like you were saying, to continue to the light speed trajectories here? Do they have to get the win? Because after that, it's a Jägermeister Cup game, and then it's San Antonio time.
I mean, in terms of being accepted, like, it's okay to draw. Like, you can do that. It's allowed in soccer. It's better than a loss. I don't think it would bring a full halt to momentum, maybe almost like a minor setback. I definitely think it would be like coming off of 2 wins and going into a loss would not be great, especially then to go into the Jägermeister Cup before the season match. I think, best case scenario win. If you get a draw and you at least feel good about your performance, and sometimes things just happen, it didn't go your way, I think you can still build upon that and move forward.
And then, finally, we've seen how thin this back line is. We've seen that there are opportunities here. Do you think we'll see defensive reinforcements on the way? Do you think that Hope Gunn gets an extension past the 25-day? Because right now, this is more of a Revolution problem, but we will not have an answer going into that game. But even then, right now, we just don't have a replaceable center back. We would have to rely on Holstead or Haribo. Do we need a defensive replacement? Do we need another player? Or is it Dewhurst's time to shine?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for now you kind of need to see if you can get to summertime and see where we're at there, at least in terms of, like, has anyone done the math in terms of when that 25-day contract updates and what would be the last game he would?
He's eligible up through, it was because they signed it the day before the Oakland game. I think that was April 5th or 6th. So he's eligible up through
Up to the
New
home
York
opener?
No, he's not eligible for that. He's
Like before it though. I mean,
I think he's eligible up through the New York Westchester game.
Okay. I think from there, maybe depending on what the status of Ugo is, and then maybe also just how well he does with the team. Maybe we'll see him continue on. If not, I think this is something that the team might have to revisit in the summer because,
but I wouldn't wait, because here's the thing. Right now, there are defensive pieces that have like gelled and will not earn starting spots up to the Leagues Cup. And so there are potentially good players to be had in like the MLS. We know Kano has a track record of bringing on players like that. I see it as a case of like, go out, be the first to go get the player you want, or pay Hope Gun.
Is there a market open?
Yeah, it's the primary window. They can do anything in the primary window. To loan down, they can do. It's like season-ending loans or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, either Hope Gun has to be purchased, or you have to go get a loan. And if we could only do a 25-day contract, either Kano wanted to wait to see what options were out there because he's notoriously picked these player profiles, or we couldn't get the money to afford a full extension contract to Hope Gun. So don't know yet. And obviously he has to wait till Hope plays through this, because you want him to play for his contract. You want him to play for the Crest. But yeah,
he got some minutes. I expect he'll get minutes this weekend, and
agreed.
And
definitely see him
weekend too.
I agree 100%. It'll be interesting to see. Speaking of predictions, guaranteed to be wrong. 57% of fans around FotMob and SofaScore believe that Detroit City FC will be the victors of this match. Just 13% believe that there's another draw ready to happen in Keyworth, and 30%, the true believers, believe that Rhode Island FC will get all 3 points. Jason, really quickly, what's your score prediction, and what do they need to do to get it?
My mind is telling me draw,
but your body,
but my body's telling me win. I'm gonna go for 2-1.
You drank the Kool-Aid up in Lewiston, I can tell.
I'm gonna go for 2-1. I think it's gonna be a tough match, but I think the boys can put it through. I think what they need to do is what we've seen them be successful with. They need to kill this match off in the first half. And that's not to say that like the second half doesn't matter, but I think that this team struggles going down. I think that maybe they lose their heads a little bit, push too hard, and then kind of, aren't able to wrestle control back of the game. They do better when they get ahead and they're like, okay, cool, come at us. And at that point, they are kind of in control, being such a good transition, almost like not full counterattack team, but being able to like come at us, we'll absorb the pressure, and then we'll try and hit you there on the break.
See, I'm the other way. I see it as it's going to be a 2-2 draw. Producer Torin agrees with me that it'll be a 2-2 draw. The reason I think that is because of the fact that we have not ever scored first against Detroit City FC. So in every game we've played so far, they've had the game momentum kind of in their favor.
Yet.
Fair enough. But like Keyworth is also, like I said, it's a notoriously difficult place to play. So if we are able to do our normal standard flair of score first, bunches of goals in the first half, then that's potentially possible because it's worked really well. Again, we have never lost a game since the Tampa Bay Rowdies when leading at half, but we have to find a way to score against this Dicchio side, which for all intent, like they're not bad defensively either. Like they've just improved their attack so far in comparison to last year. Dicchio now actually has a higher points per game than he did in 2024, which again, early sample size, that could easily go against him very quickly in the time to come. So I don't know which way it goes, but I see this as a 2-2 draw. But I would be willing to course correct my opinion if we go up even by just one goal in the first half, I could easily see if we can score 2 goals in the first 45 minutes, I could see us winning the game outright. But we have not yet seen that from a game against Detroit City, so I'm not yet sure if that is a thing that we'll have. So those are my thoughts on it. Any final thoughts from you? Any final feelings on the matter?
When's that Res match again?
I have it pulled up. Well, I don't have it pulled up. Sorry, I have the RIFC schedule. They have not yet loaded it into the calendar, which is a really cool function. They finally have the calendar where you can like download it into your email or your phone calendars, but that's unfortunately not available just yet. Guys, don't forget to check out this game. It will be on Nessun Plus and of course ESPN Plus. It's an away game, so you're also going to have Tom Quinlan and Nick on the air being available to do the play-by-play on 790 The Score. The game, it's an earlier game, so remember to get to the Guild in Pawtucket early.
4 p.m. match?
4 p.m. match. So we'll be at the Guild in Pawtucket, but of course, there are all the different pub partners like Moniker and all the rest of them. So if you can't make it for some reason, or it's the Pawtucket Guild is too far, you can always hang out at one of those. But it's going to be an exciting game, or it's going to be a painful game, but it shouldn't be a boring game. I think I've said that a lot lately because Rhode Island FC doesn't do boring games anymore. They're not allowed to. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, this is another long one here, so let's just wrap it up. Thanks everyone for sticking with us. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket, New England Soccer, including RIFC, and that's at theblazingmusket.com. You can check us out on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcast. RIFC actually posted on their Blue Sky for the first time in like 3 months. You love to see it.
They found the password.
Instagram at Raising Anchor, and there's that website you can go look up, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up, buddy.
Anchor's up. We'll see you guys at the Guild.